from cars to phones and even clothes, it's time that we talk about the strange world of financed goods. So, financed goods, one of the biggest wealth killers in your early 20s, if not the majority of your life, is the subject for today's video. Because I know a lot of people who have gone about financing a lot of silly decisions. I even have one story of one guy that I knew who one day came in a pair of shoes. I don't even know what shoes that they were. I still don't know to this day what shoes they were. But apparently there were some expensive shoes. Guy starts showing off the shoes, and long story short, explains that they were on finance. Bro was leasing some shoes. So this is a reality. It's a serious subject, and it is definitely one of the biggest killers of wealth in your earlier years. The amount of people my age I know that have got expensive sports or luxury cars that not only cost a lot to finance, a lot to refuel and maintain. Again, finance clothes. Why? They are going to wear out and you will never remember them. Or even things like a mobile phone, which sounds like necessities, but realistically you can either buy a cheaper model or buy outright. You see, financing is one of these big things where it makes people feel like things are a lot more affordable. What I did when I bought my new car, I paid for it out of cash, and when I say new car, it's actually 30 years old. I paid for it in cash, right? I paid for it one lump sum. It was near about £2,000. I know people who would not spend that much money. It'd be an intimidating amount, but they would rather spend £100, £300, £400, £500 a month on finance payments for the next 24 months, so 2 years. Maybe I've seen even as high as 6 to 8 years. 6 to 8 years on a car, sometimes even 10. Think about this. By the time you've paid off this car, not only will you have spent an awful lot of money, you will also have a car that is now old. What I did is I bought a car that was old anyway, but that was a personal choice. You don't need to buy a car that's 30 years old, but 10 years old, 20 years old. You'd be amazed at not only the fact that you can buy a higher quality and perhaps better, if it's what you want to do, more prestigious model of car, the cost of running that is actually cheaper, because even factoring in its brakes and issues, the amount of money that people spend on these finance cars are ludicrous. But again, by breaking it down into a couple of payments every couple of weeks, every month, it seems a lot smaller, because it's now not £36,000 over 5 years, it's now 200 a month or 300 a month. It's a lot smaller. Or it seems a lot smaller. But because of this, people go for them. And people go for them at stages in the life where they don't need them. Now, this is a funny thing. Out of everybody that I know that's had a finance car, the benefits that they get from it is not as much as you may think. This idea that these new cars are the only reliable models, not necessarily true at all. And again, the maintenance costs of older cars are still cheaper than paying tens of thousands of pounds. I'll give you an example. The car that I bought right now, it's a more expensive model, an older, more expensive model. It cost me a little bit of money, like I say, just under £2,000. The biggest repair jobs that can happen on that car are going to be like £2,500 max. And that's unlikely to happen. That's like once in 10 years at worst, if not longer than that. The amount of money that you will save by not financing a car or other things that you don't need to buy can be invested into other purchases, right? Or investments. And people think a car is an investment. It's not. All cars are liabilities besides extremely rare models, and even then the cost of maintenance is often so high, financially it doesn't actually work out. So what's my point? My point is this. I know a lot of you guys are about impressing other people, but the reality of it is this. When you do this, when you go about doing this in the way of keeping up with the trend, a few things happen. Number one, the things that you have are probably not as special as you think. Number two, your identity is probably, or possibly at least, related to, directly, these assets. Or these things. You tie a lot of your personality into what these are. They also have you trapped for a relatively long period of time, leaving you with something that's going to either need replacing again to keep up with this trend, or going to provide you with the same amount of issues and the same depreciated value and status as an older car like mine. And the funny thing is, when you go for the opposite end of this trend like I did, not a car that's 3 months old but 30 years old, it's now got its own sense of kind of specialness in a way. People still respect it, if in some ways actually respect it more. They've never seen a car like it before. They've never seen this model, all these different things, because they don't see them anymore. You know, these Audi S3s that people finance and all these other cars, they're very, very common. They're not special, nobody cares. And even if they were super special, people look at it, they think, oh, that's nice, and they go about their life. You're the one stuck paying it for years. And again, 30,000, 40, 50, 60, 70,000 at such a young age, i.e. under 30, what could that be? That could be the deposit for a house. It could be 20 to 40% of a mortgage paid down, maybe. Depends where you live, what you want to buy. These are the better decisions. And these assets will go on to pay you, right? So again, if you were to go down the house route, maybe you could then refinance and buy these cars. Or other things. Or just invest in the markets. If you are a car person like me, I understand the appeal of getting nice cars. If that's the purpose of it, fair enough. But this finance culture that we live in wants people to spend all of their money. It makes it seem like the money that we spend is a smaller amount, when in reality it's more than ever. I can't think of, looking at the facts and data that I've looked at, listening to the people whose opinions I've listened to and stories, a time where people would have paid monthly for cars for multiple years. It's crazy. It is literally ridiculous, and it makes no sense. It's not providing the value that you think it is, and again, a lot of these vehicles, they still require fueling, electric or petrol or diesel. That's its own cost. Like I say, I can say no matter what happens with my vehicle, it's my vehicle. If it needs to be repaired, if it needs fueling, yeah, still got the same onus. But you know how much money is over my head in that vehicle? Zero. I owe nobody a penny on that vehicle. And we can relate this to anything in your life. Some things you have to buy on finance, maybe mortgages. Sometimes it makes more sense to buy things on finance because you will sort of be able to utilize that cash for better resources or purposes in the meantime. But a lot of the time, people aren't thinking. People aren't thinking, and they get into this trap. And especially when we're talking about a young age, this is a time to live, right? What you're doing by financing something and fixing yourself to one asset or item for 5 years, 10 years, you are limiting yourself. You're making an obligation to stick to that payment, right? £400 a month, £800 a month, whatever. You are now obligated to pay that for the next 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, maybe even 4 years. But what can happen in that time? I know that I'm not the same person who I was 4 years ago. Would I like the same car that I liked 4 years ago? Ostensibly, yes, but would it still have the same appeal to it? I don't know if it would. And this is my point for today's video, right? This is the biggest mistake that young people get in, and perhaps this one's a rant because I'm just trying to clear something up. I realise this at a young age. A lot of things you guys will be better buying outright. You'll be paying less in credit, you'll be paying less in interest because you won't have interest on upfront cash payments. You can set your own items, and then there's no stress, right? You can sell them straight on, you can get rid, you can not use them anymore. When you finance things, you're paying for them for years, whether you like it or not. You can cancel the finance maybe at some extra cost, but you know, you are obligated to a contract. And again, at such a young age, I know, and I know a lot of you guys know, but a lot of people don't. These are keeping you poor. Yes, we have now reduced the car that cost 50,000 to on paper only £500, but this is every month for the next however many years. And this is a huge wealth killer. You could have used that money to travel, to invest. And again, like I say, if it's cars especially, which it almost always is, the car that is, you know, top right now, it's not going to be in a couple of years. Look at some of the cars from 5-10 years ago that have now, they don't have the same appeal. Maybe the same models of that car do, but not that actual version, right? Maybe it's a newer version of the Audi S3 or something like that. These cars have fallen off. Or they're not the latest. Maybe they're still nice, and I think that they are, but a lot of people are looking for the flashiest and the newest. Unless you're going to keep this cycle going, just going for a newer car, as some people do, this is a long-term subscription. And at a time where you're going to want location flexibility, at a time where you're going to want free cash in savings, in investments, at a time where you're going to want to make the biggest investments of your life, and use your time and money to research and develop yourself and your skills. Why spend so much money now obligating yourself to work to a point where you can pay £500 a month for the next 5 years? Put that into savings, use it to travel the world, get a real perspective on things, and I think that's more valuable. You guys can do you, of course, but this is one of these things, it's just a rant, really. I've never understood it. I don't know if you guys do, I don't know if you don't. Let me know, of course. Thank you.